right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Thank you so much for coming this morning. And given the fact that this is a business environment, we'll go straight to it. Welcome to the 6th edition of the African Investment Forum, Market Days 2024. And I know you represent more than 40 news agencies from various parts of the world. And I just want to thank you for making it here to witness for you what transformational investment means for Africa. Now, before you are the founding partners of Africa Investment Forum. We've got some who are still making their way, but let me introduce the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akumi Adesina, who is also the chairman of the boards of directors and is also the chairman of the Africa Investment Forum. Next to Dr. Adesina, on his left, is Ambrose Fayole, who is the Vice President of European Investment Bank, representing the President, Nadia Calvino. And to the President's right is the CEO of AIF24, Elaine Ebobise. And next to Elaine is the CEO of the Development Bank of Southern Africa, Boitomelo Mosako. And next to her is Engineer Hani Sonbol, the CEO of the International Islamic Trade Finance Corporation and acting CEO, Islamic Corporation for the Development of the Private Sector. And he is representing His Excellency, Mohammed Suleiman Al-Jazar, the chairman of the Islamic Development Bank Group. And right next to me here is Haytham El-Mayagi, who is the Executive Vice President of Afrexim Bank, representing Professor Benedito Rama, the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Afrexim Bank. We'll be expecting representatives of the Arab Development Bank for Economic Development in Africa, BADEA, Dr. Siri Ulta shortly, and also the President and Managing Director of the Trade and Development Bank, Dr. Tadesse Edmasu. So what we'll do is this, we'll go straight to quick comments from the chairman of the African Investment Forum. That is Dr. Adesina. I will speak to you. He may hand over to colleagues, other partners as well. And then after that, we'll have about 40 minutes for your questions. Mr. President, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Director Mugara. Good morning to everybody. Welcome. Let me welcome you as media houses and journalists to the Africa Investment Forum 2024 edition. I understand I was here yesterday. I understand that we have 25, maybe more, media houses and journalists here. Thank you very much for taking the time to come. The media plays a very, very critical role, both in terms of promoting what we do, but also understanding the narrative and shaping the narrative of Africa, which is why we do what we do, bringing investments to land in Africa as plain lands on a smooth landing strip. That's what we do. That's what we are here to do, to make sure Africa can mobilize capital at scale, for that capital to stay on the continent, for that capital to thrive on the continent. And we, as you see all of us here, it shows you the power of partnerships that we believe it's not just one institution, it's the power of the collective in attracting, retaining, and growing capital on this continent. I'd like to start by thanking the government of Morocco. Of course, this is our second year in a row. We were here in Marrakesh, some of you will remember, last year, and this is our second time. So we are grateful to the government of Morocco. The theme of this year's Market Days is leveraging innovative partnerships at scale. Partnerships at scale. So the focus is how to make things happen in Africa together. Global partnerships, regional partnerships, financial partnerships, investment partnerships, but all of those directed to making things happen for Africa at scale. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing that matters in Africa is what we do big times. Africa doesn't have time for Mickey Mouse investments, little things. Africa must do big things at scale. Let me say that the AIF partners, our goal is basically to help to shift the perceptions on investments in Africa. And so we, as a platform, actually do that through investment facilitation. As a trusted partner that can actually bring folks together, from project developers to investors to financiers to those that would do risk investments, all together to advance transactions on our continent. The second goal that we have is to mobilize capital. The third one, of course, is to accelerate financial closure of projects around that we help to mobilize. This year, I'm delighted that we will be expanding membership in terms of founding members to include Badia, the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, which President is on his way. We have for AIF 2024 a huge participation from around the world, from project developers to investors to a whole range of financial institutions that you will be able to talk to throughout the next 3 days. We have a total of 2,306 participants from 83 countries. And that's compared to 1,439 in 2023. And that's an impressive growth of 60% participation. That tells you the level of interest, the level of engagement in Africa when it comes to investment. We have also 2,000, we reached out to 2,298 investors via the investor blast that we do globally. And I'm pleased that 1,707 of those investors from 200 institutions globally are here to participate in the boardrooms. Many of these investors are also attending the Africa Investment Forum for the first time. We have major global investors this year that are joining us, including JP Morgan, including Goldman Sachs. We have the Deutsche Bank. We have the JBIC. We have the Museo Bank. We have a big delegation also from China. We have a whole range of export credit agencies that are actually attending for the first time. Probably about 60 of them from around the world that are here, whether it's from Japan, from India, several others. We have China, Exim Bank here, India Exim Bank here, the various Japanese private equity and venture capital funds, and we have the US DFC, USDA, and MIGA, the World Bank Guarantee Facility, is also here with us. And one of our neighbors not too far from here is Caixa Depositi e Prestiti, which is part of the Mate plan. You'll be hearing about the Mate plan that we are engaging with them to be part of this. So we are very delighted with that. We have 41 boardrooms that we have prepared, and I hope that you all can participate in, and follow up the discussions in those. The range of projects cover rail, ports. For example, right here in the National Office of Railways, Bureau National, Office National de Chemin de Fer, has a whole range of massive projects here that we will be discussing. Mining projects. Mining is becoming a big issue in Africa. And in fact, I was supposed, in fact, to be in the reason why we don't also have our colleague here from AFC is that I'm actually supposed to have been invited by President Biden, which is today, the Lobito corridor that we are supporting. But that just tells you that a lot of interest in corridors, development of value chains around mining industry in Africa. And you're going to have a lot of those being discussed over the next 2 days. Renewable energy is a big part of what you will see in the deals being discussed. Food and agriculture, water and sanitation, seaports. We also have a lot of private equity funds, and of course, manufacturing and pharmaceutics will also be featuring a lot this year. I wish to state that we are working together as partners, and in fact, we just had our breakfast session, and where we were saying that it's not just one of us, it's all of us. And collectively, the AIF partners have originated deals about $15 billion among ourselves. So it just tells you how we work together as partners. So we hope to be able to get investors. As I said yesterday at the opening dinner, everything we do over the next 3 days is fill your glass. You want to fill your glass? Maybe you're coughing a little bit. Okay, fill your glass, but we want to actually make sure the conversations are enriched with a lot more investments. It's a very, very serious 3 days of deal making. Thank you very much for being part of it. Thank you for coming, And welcome again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. President. And I think now it's time to invite questions from you, members of the press. There are roving microphones here. Remember your name and that of your organization, and also keep to a very brief or succinct question. So let's get some hands up quickly so that we can save on time. So we've got one here. Okay, go for it. Just a moment, they switch it on, please.
All right, are we good?
Yep.
All right, morning everyone, and congratulations again on another AIF market days here. It's good to see that the focus is on part. Looking at the track record over the years, we've seen the work that has gone in here. I understand that there's going to be a new categorization this time around as we go into the boardroom sessions. And I'm trying to understand how this will impact the quality.
Hold on. The microphone is not so clear, guys. If you can fix that.
All right. I think it's better now.
Try again.
Great.
And maybe speak a bit slowly.
All right. So I was just saying that I understand that there's going to be a new categorization for the deals this time around, and I'm trying to understand how this will impact the quality and pipeline, and also accelerate financial closure this time around. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Next. Yes. Here we go.
Good morning, Mr. President. I just have one question. Can we come back on the last edition of African Investor Forum, and you say us how was the engagement of investment and what is done? And what is your main goal for this edition in terms of investment? Thank you very much.
All right. We'll take those two as we come for another round of questions, please. Okay. Let's get more questions because of time, guys. Yeah, we don't have any more questions. There's right there.
Hello, Massimo Zaurini from Africa Affari, Italy. The international situation is very complex, as we all know. Have you noticed that, have you registered some impact on investment in the continent in the last year?
Okay. Yeah, any other question we can take in this round? Okay, Mr. President, you can handle those three first.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. First is the question that was asked about the categorization. I was trying to understand because the mic wasn't working, sorry. Well, just so that you know, we have curated quite a lot of projects this year. And one of the things that we've done a lot better is, you can have investor interest, but what we do is we also have to fast track the closure of the deals that we have. And so the quality of the preparation is very important. The quality at the entry of those investment transactions is very important. So this year, we could have presented a whole lot more, but we've actually sifted it to those projects that have actually been very well prepared. They can actually reach bankability much faster and also meet environmental and social safeguards that we have to do. So that's how we've actually done it better this year. So we believe that that would actually help us in being able to fast track towards investments, acceleration towards investment closure. So that's how the categorization this year has been done. In terms of the what we've done, but before, rather than go into a broad thing, let me give it to Alan to tell you what, from his perspective, what Africa 50 has done and benefited. I'll give it over to the other partners to talk to you about that and what their expectations are for 2024. Alan, briefly, and then we go that way.
Yes, thank you, President Adesina. Indeed, AIF is really a platform that enables each of the institution's partners to do more, to do faster things. What we've seen with AIF is that it's actually an accelerator of project implementation because when we get project presented here, first of all, there's a quality of entry screening, as President Adesina said, but there's also a pressure on all the stakeholders of the project to deliver to the final milestone, which is financial close, as quickly as possible, because they will come back to AIF and then people will ask about what's happening. So for us, we have transactions that we brought here at AIF that have achieved financial close. But we also have transactions which are innovative in nature, where we can leverage the collective power of AIF to get them moving. For example, this year, we will be bringing one of the first power transmission PPPs, public-private partnerships in Africa, at AIF. As you may know, Africa today finances all the transmission PPPs through public financing, and AIF is enabling us to do PPP in the transmission subsector. So this is also what AIF does. And finally, the transaction that we'll be announcing here on the synthetic securitization. These are some of the transactions to bring global investors, regional investors, institutional investors to participate in Africa deals. This is also what AIF is enabling us, all of us, to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Bushimela.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think I'm even responding to what the gentleman asked to say in a complex environment, how are we navigating as investors? And I think, and that's the reason for the Africa Investment Forum, in that complexity, amidst those challenges, there is this platform that enables all of us to come together, collaborate, so that we continue to meet the development needs of our continent. It is a platform of action, very intentional in its nature, and continues, to be refined, as the President, mentioned earlier, in terms of the categorization of the projects. What is key here is scale. And for instance, as the DBSA, we have brought transactions from South Africa across various sectors, from water, energy, and also, in the logistics sector as well, but different clients. We have clients from the sub-national government. We have private sector clients. We also have state-owned entity clients that are here to showcase those transactions. So this is a really, an action platform. And the number of investors has also grown who are attending the Africa Investment Forum. A clear indication that this platform, enables scale as well, which is critical for investment on our continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fayam?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The European Investment Bank is the Bank of the European Union, and we are the only non-African funding institution of the African Investment Forum, and we are very proud of being the only non-African institution that is founding member of AIF. We are extremely thankful to the vision of President Adesina at the time and now about how to bring together institutions to develop projects that could be not only actually bringing a lot of investment, bringing investors, bringing entrepreneurs, but also developing something that for us is very important, which is vision on communication about what is happening in African entrepreneurship and what is happening in African female entrepreneurship in particular, which for us is also a key objective that we follow. And in the case of the Climate Bank of the European Union, developing renewable energy projects, energy efficiency projects, every project that can bring adaptation in Africa, these projects that are so needed also, not only for climate, but also for the future of the African entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Islamic Development Bank.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, we are at the Islamic Development Bank Group. We are very much recognize these platforms are very important for really for collaborating actually with our esteemed partners. As we see now, this AIF is becoming a globally recognized platform, and it is a way really to unlock really the potentials of really scaling up and also do more work in Africa in terms of really financing important development plans. We have recognized in the group that such platforms are very, very important for really achieving achieving our objectives. From my own experience, I think this is going to be, of course, one of the really major platforms for the future of Africa. We have been really experiencing other platforms and other, ways of facilitating really collaborations among partnership, such as the Arab-Africa Trade Bridge, and this is one of the also other platforms. These kinds of platforms are actually not only bringing us together, but as said before me, it was going to be a way of scaling up really our financing. And definitely this year's AIF, as we see, it is going to be one of the largest among the all the editions that has been really organized before. The number of attendees and also the number of dealing rooms, the projects, it all shows that we are actually seeing a very good collaborations, and definitely we will see more in the future. I would like to say that really at the IDB group, we are very much committed to really work with our partners toward achieving the goals of the AIF, and also collaborate more and more in Africa. Today, we have reached about $100 billion of financing in terms of financing projects, in terms of facilitating trade across the continent and across the world. And we also have a lot of investments through our entities, like the private sector entity, the ICD, and the trade entity like the ITFC, and ISIC in providing insurance for important projects. So definitely, this is for us is a very important platform, and we will continue. We will continue to give all the support needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Africa Bank.
Thank you. We thank AIF for really bringing this together. As you know, our agenda when it comes to intra-Africa trade and export development and operationalization of AFCFTA, we cannot do it alone. We cannot do it us as individually, but what we can do is that we can use our power to leverage more, and this is what this platform is doing, leverage more, providing the way for private capital to come and see the de-risking and get more interest into the continent. We're eager here to show a lot of what we do to bring more partners to the areas we've done already in terms of partnership, whether in industrial parks, whether in the health sector, Africa Medical Center of Excellence, whether in the digital area where we attracted partners to leverage more. We already have also a theme on how to bring EPC contractor in Africa, bring African contractor to do African EPCs. There's a lot of themes we would like to leverage together with our partners. We're very also excited to participate on the boardrooms and show and get partners to the project we see and partner on other projects, whether the areas of FLNG and green and the whole other areas. So exciting time for us, partner in projects, partner in transactions, and it's actually impressive to see the convening power that this event has, the number of people, the diversity of people, and it tally very much of the leverage effect that we would like to see. We're fully engaged to make this a success, and it's a great start for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just to say that to your question about on Italy, first let me use the opportunity to highly commend the Prime Minister Meloni of Italy for the Mattei plan of Italy towards Africa. And the African Development Bank is the implementer for that. And Mattei plan is going to put about almost $6.5 billion into Africa. A lot of that will cover energy, transport, entrepreneurship, private sector, and other areas, including food security for the continent and education. And so I think it's a great plan, and we'll be talking about that. We have a special session on that later today. But I think globally, the issue is not lack of capital. That's not a problem. Our capital is like water. It goes to where there's least resistance. And therefore, to be able to attract that capital in Africa, that's what we're doing, what we are doing here, is to be able to de-risk investments globally, focusing on Africa, to being able to attract those investments to Africa, to being able to syndicate among ourselves so that those investments can be at scale, because scale is the only thing that matters really for us. And if you take a look at it for Africa today, even among ourselves, we're seeing a lot of our institutional investors investing in infrastructure as an asset class. I mean, if you take, for example, the Africa Acceleration Fund of Africa 50, that we were able to reach first close for it, almost, I think was, how much?
16 African investors.
Yeah, I mean, how much was it? It was about
222.5.
Yeah, almost close to $230 million. But we got about 15 institutional investors in Africa, which is the first to actually begin to see. So you're finding that Africa's institutional investors, they hold about almost $2.4 trillion of assets under management, are allocating more into infrastructure as an asset class, which is what we want to see. And when African institutional investors are moving, then global institutional investors are also coming there. So I think we're doing the right thing. The other thing is, I wanted to say that we're working at scale, in particular about light up and power Africa. Because everything we do, if we don't have electricity at scale, we will not be able to succeed. And that's why I launched together with President Adjebanga of the World Bank, what's called Mission 300, which is to connect 300 million Africans to electricity by 2030. And this is what all of us, are also going to be working quite a lot around that. We also agree among ourselves that we need to do a lot more in terms of improving the overall business investment regulatory environment to be able to make sure that capital actually comes to the continent, stays on the continent, thrives on the continent. And macroeconomic stability is a key component for that. And so we'll continue to support that. And just as an example of how the world is listening to and responding to what we're doing, I'll just give you an example of the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, which the African Development Bank developed, and we're working together now with Africa 50 to implement it. This is a vehicle that will have $100 million for project preparation. Preparation is always a challenge for many investors when it comes to Africa. Secondly, is that it will also have $400 million for project development. And this vehicle will be used to mobilize $10 billion for green infrastructure in Africa. So it's a big development for which the G7 strongly supports it. So that tells you things we develop in Africa, they're getting global endorsement to move things forward. It just tells you how fast that we are moving. We are moving. So let me just leave it at that, so that we don't take too much of your time. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. President. Maybe you have 5 minutes for just one more question. We'll come right, the lady at the back, right at the back. We'll come like that. Keep it brief, because we just have about 10 minutes to the official opening of the African Investment Forum. Yes, your name and organization, please, quickly.
Thank you. My name is Ayanat Merse, and I'm from DevEx. I wanted to ask a question about debt. I know we're all aware of the high debt burden that many countries face, and I know, Dr. Adesina, you've criticized the Africa premium extensively in the past. And unfortunately, just now we've had a COP agreement that really lacks any sort of concessional financing, so runs the risk of making that debt burden worse. So I wanted to hear from you on what's being done to try and tackle this debt problem. And I know that in the past we've talked about the need for African credit ratings agency. So any updates on that or any comment on the potential role that any of your organizations could have in that?
All right, thank you. Let's come here quickly. Yes, we'll take those two. And let me just say, if you want to speak in French, there is translation, please. Tu es libre de parler en français. OK, continuez. Microphone, please.
Journaliste.
OK, essayez encore.
Journaliste Leila Ouchagour, journaliste aujourd'hui au Maroc. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la dynamique des investissements au Maroc?
Yeah, hold it close to the mouth, yes.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la dynamique?
Un, deux. Test du son.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la dynamique d'investissement au Maroc, spécialement durant les dernières années? Merci.
Thank you. My name is Agri Mutambo for the East African. My question is on the public-private partnerships. And I would like any of you or top officials to just explain what are the trends are you seeing when you engage with African governments, especially those ones who have revenue constraints when it comes to building infrastructure? Is it something they see as an alternative for the future? Thank you.
Okay, and then very last question, right there, the lady in blue, please. Yeah, the lady in blue here, please. Yeah. Okay. Try again, the microphone can't hear it.
Good morning. My name is Melody Chikono from Zimbabwe. My question is directed to European Investment Bank. In 2022, you opened your doors to Zimbabwe after 22 years of financial dry spell, where you extended a facility of 40 million through credit lines. I just wanted to find out from you, was it a once-off thing, or you have other plans for Zimbabwe? What investment plans do you have for Zimbabwe in the future? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. That's enough.
Let me start with the question on the debt. There's no doubt that debt is burden. It's a big challenge for Africa. You know, if you look at Africa's debt obligations, I mean, in terms of repayment of debt, you know, this year Africa will have to pay $74 billion to service its debt, and that is compared to $17 billion in 2010. So the amount of debt service payments, it's increasing significantly. And that's been made worse by a number of factors, including the fact that you have weakening currencies, depreciation of the currencies. You have the tight monetary policies that have been used in advanced, in developed economies that have raised interest rates. Of course, it's been probably coming down in some areas, but it has been very, very high. And so the issue is how we deal with it. And so what we are doing is in different ways in Africa. First is we believe that the G20 Common Framework, which is a framework to have equivalency between private debt creditors and the ones that are more concessional creditors, It's working. It's been used to help with Zambia, with Ghana, and also with Ethiopia. But obviously, it needs to work better at scale to be able to tackle that problem. So speed is important, scale is important, to be able to have creditors agree very quickly in terms of what needs to be done in terms of debt resolution for those countries. The second one, of course, is the issue of the special drawing rights. I think the special drawing rights of the IMF has helped quite a lot. We have made a case that the special drawing rights needs to be used for multilateral development banks to leverage more capital and therefore deliver concessional financing at scale to our countries. And the African Development Bank worked very closely with the Inter-American Development Bank, and we put up a proposal to the IMF where the special drawing rights will be going to the multilateral development banks, but because we are AAA rated financial institutions, the special drawing rights, one SDR will lead, or dollar of it will lead to 4 times leverage by the multilateral development bank. And in fact, we co-finance it, that will become 8 times. So I'm very delighted that the IMF board of directors have approved $20 billion, up to $20 billion, to be used for special drawing rights rechanneling to multilateral development banks based on the model that the African Development Bank developed and worked together with Inter-American Development Bank. What that means is when we succeed with that, that $20 billion becomes $180 billion of long-term financing and lower interest rate that can support a lot of these countries that find difficulty in getting concessional financing. So that's one thing. We're working very hard on that. On the issue of rating, yes, of course. I think the cost of capital in Africa is probably 3 to 4 times those of other parts of the world. And that's because of the way African countries are rated. I remember when we were in Nairobi, President of Kenya said that it was so he has to pay 200 basis points more because there was a coup in Niger Republic. And he said, look, Niger is not in Niger, it's not in Kenya, it's not even a neighbor, you know. So all I'm saying is that African countries, credit rating agencies have to better understand conditions in Africa. They have to deal with the issue of asymmetry of information that comes out of lack of understanding of the real situation on the ground. And that's why we at the African Development Bank and all the other partners strongly support the idea of having an Africa Credit Rating Agency. I want to be very clear, that is not a political agency. It's not. It's going to be a world-class institution. When you and I have to go to doctors and we get a medical scan, we've got to be able to have a second opinion. Africa deserves to have that second opinion based on good data about the history of its of default rates, just not to accelerate that. And that's why I think that this is very important to be supported. And finally, is that we, as African Development Bank, have taken the leadership to support to develop what's called the Africa Financial Stability Mechanism. The Africa Financial Stability Mechanism, which we are presenting, was just approved by the Ministers of Finance just a week ago. It's going to go to the African heads of state for presentation in February at the ordinary summit of the heads of state. What's important about it is that this Africa Financial Stability Mechanism will operate almost like the European Financial Stability Mechanism. Because Africa is the only continent in the world that doesn't have a regional financial arrangement to prevent it from when they have financial shocks, it's a direct transmission into the economy. There are no buffers around Africa. So what this will do is that it will actually refinance Africa's debt. Today, most of the debt of Africa is actually with private creditors. And because they've issued most of it on the global capital markets, Africa will need this year $20 billion to refinance that debt. And there's no institution in the world that does refinancing of debt. IMF doesn't. We as multilateral development banks, we don't. So the Africa Financial Stability Mechanism will be that vehicle that will allow Africa to be able to have the resources to refinance Africa's debt. I think that's important. Finally, it's concessional financing. We need more, not less. You know, I mean, we at the African Development Bank, we have African Development Fund, which is what we use to support the 37 low-income countries. We're trying to mobilize more replenishment for that this year at about $25 billion. We have set a target for that. Either also the World Bank is also mobilizing more resources for concessional financing. We need more concessional financing to be able to do what we do. So that's the situation with regard to debt. Let me pass the question to EIB on Zimbabwe, and maybe I will ask Alain to say something about Morocco because you're here, and then I'll close with that.
Thank you, President. To your question on the European Investment Bank in Zimbabwe, what we have done over the last years and since 2022 is re-engage with private sector operations, in particular with banks. What we do is we lend. We don't have a network in the field, but there are a lot of financial institutions in Africa who do. And we lend to banks for banks to lend to SMEs. We have done that actually for 3 banks since 2022. There is an operation that has been already approved by our board and almost ready for signature, I have to say, that has a special characteristic. It's also a loan to a bank to lend to SMEs, but with a special characteristic which is corresponding to the big priority we have in Africa, which is the promotion of women entrepreneurship. And so with a special attention paid in the loans to SMEs, to those SMEs who are led or where women play a very, very important role in the management of the SMEs. That's one of the things we do a lot. On Morocco, I will let Alain answer also. Just one thing that I find interesting in what we do in sub-Saharan Africa, what I see is a stronger and stronger engagement of Moroccan banks in sub-Saharan Africa. And actually, we have developed a strong partnership with BCP in particular, to develop in Côte d'Ivoire, in other places, in Senegal, the possibility to develop SME businesses thanks to the partnership with BCP. Thank you.
Just on Zimbabwe, to add to that, the African Development Bank, we have lines of credit that we provide to banks in Zimbabwe. And as you know, I'm the champion for the arrears clearance for Zimbabwe. We provided about $25 million to CABS, Central Africa Building Society. We also have provided $15 million to the First Capital Bank in Zimbabwe. And we're just working on a $100 million guarantee facility that will be with Old Mutual and also CABS. So there's a lot of work that we are doing to support Zimbabwe on the private sector side, even as we are working to see how we can do the arrears clearance for the sovereign debt that Zimbabwe has. Alain?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madame, sur la dynamique des investissements au Maroc, et je voudrais rebondir d'abord sur le point que faisait le vice-président Ambroise Fayol. Le climat des affaires au Maroc, il est attractif. Et il y a des bons instruments, il y a des fondamentaux qui sont forts, notamment la liquidité des banques marocaines qui non seulement soutiennent les investissements au Maroc, mais également on les voit à travers le continent. Mais ce qui est également important, c'est qu'il y a eu de nouveaux instruments qui ont été rajoutés, comme le fonds Mohamed VI, qui est un fonds d'investissement qui dynamise l'investissement au Maroc. Donc on a vu une augmentation de ces investissements, également autour des événements importants comme l'organisation de la Coupe d'Afrique des Nations de foot ou de la Coupe du Monde. C'est des événements qui créent une vraie dynamique d'investissement, notamment dans les infrastructures. Et moi, je pense qu'on est très content de voir ce qui se passe, mais je crois qu'il va encore avoir une accélération parce qu'on adopte encore plus les PPP, les partenariats publics-privés, dans ce royaume, et ça va accélérer encore la dynamique qui est déjà existante. Donc pour nous, le Maroc est un exemple, pour ne rien vous cacher, notamment dans le secteur des infrastructures, et donc on va voir encore plus d'investissements ici au Maroc, et encore des investissements des entreprises ou des banques marocaines à travers le continent, et c'est aussi ce que nous souhaitons soutenir.
Mais juste pour finaliser ça pour la Maroc, je suis d'accord avec M. Ebobisse. Si vous regardez la situation dans ce pays, il y a une ampleur sur l'infrastructure dans ce pays, soit l'infrastructure énergétique, l'eau, assainissement, infrastructure en ce qui concerne le chemin de fer, mais aussi infrastructure en ce qui concerne les aéroportières. La Banque africaine de développement soutient très fortement le secteur privé ici. OCP, par exemple, c'est une institution pour laquelle on fait beaucoup d'investissements pour OCP, Office chilien de phosphate ici, qui est le plus large qui font la manufacture de phosphate dans le monde. La deuxième, c'est que nous faisons, par exemple, en tant que la Banque africaine de développement, nous avons des projets d'investissement ici, autour de 37 projets, avec un montant global de 3,6 milliards de dollars d'investissement ici. Pour cette année seulement, nous avons, on va décaisser ici 1,5 milliard de dollars pour l'investissement ici au Maroc. Comme M. Alain Beboussé aussi avait dit, il y a deux événements qui auront lieu ici qui sont très importants. Il y a l'investissement, la CAN Coupe Afrique de Nations, je pense que ça c'est l'année prochaine. Il y a aussi le Coupe du Monde que vous allez organiser en collaboration, en partenariat avec l'Espagne et je pense qu'au Portugal. Pour ça, il y a beaucoup de choses en préparation. L'infrastructure fait une grande partie de ça. Et donc, la Banque africaine de développement, l'année prochaine, le premier trimestre de l'année prochaine, on va soumettre pour la considération de notre conseil d'administration un investissement de 650 millions d'euros pour l'investissement sur aéroportière, mais aussi pour autres types d'infrastructures qui peuvent soutenir des événements tellement très importants comme ça. Et je dis, enfin, je soutiens ce que M. Ebobisse dit, le fonds souverain qui a été créé par Sa Majesté, le fonds Mohamed VI, le fonds fonds propre pour l'investissement, on soutient ça. Je pense que c'est une marque qui montre l'importance d'avoir le fonds de private equity, qui est très important ici de faciliter l'investissement sur le secteur privé. Donc, on est là aussi au Maroc, on est tout là, et donc on est là parce que je pense que le Maroc est bancable. C'est la raison pour laquelle on est là. Merci beaucoup.
Right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen of the press. We've come to the end of this session, but if you've got any more questions, I'm here together. My colleague Solange is here, Lamia is here as well. And for those key messages Mr. President delivered about the participants, the number of participants, the countries represented here, the institutions, the number of investors, the range of investments, we've got all those key messages we'll be able to share with you after this. But I know we want to transition to the official opening ceremony, but help me to thank, first of all, the President of the African Development Bank, who is also the chairman of the African Investment Forum, Dr. Akiumi Adeshina. On his left is Ambrose Fayole from the European Investment Bank. We have got the CEO of Africa50, Elena Bobise, and we've got Boitumelo Mosako from Development Bank of Southern Africa. We've got Engineer Hani Sombol from Islamic Development Bank, and of course we've got Haytham El Mahaji from Afrexim Bank. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We can now transition to the official opening ceremony. Thank you. Thank you.